A bright light blinked across the sky as Captain Ryan Clark stood on the edge of the outpost. The sun had just started to dip behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the alien landscape. The air smelled strange here, thick with the scent of alien plants, earthy and alive. Ryan had grown used to the planet's odd smells, sounds, and sights, but today felt different. It felt like something was coming. He adjusted his helmet, wiping the sweat from his brow. As a soldier in the United Earth Defense Forces, he had been stationed here for 6 months, guarding an outpost on a remote planet far from Earth. The place wasn't much, just a small base surrounded by endless stretches of dense alien jungle. His job was simple: stay alert, keep watch, and report any threats. Yet, despite the quiet and isolation, something always felt off about this place. Maybe it was the constant hum of the distant alien structures or the eerie stillness of the jungle at night. It always seemed to hide secrets. Then it happened. A loud explosion shook the ground beneath his boots. Ryan spun around, instinctively reaching for his weapon, his heart racing. His communicator buzzed to life. The voice of Lieutenant. "Marshal came through, sharp and urgent. Captain Clark, report to command immediately. We've got a situation." Ryan didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the command center, the mission taking over his every thought. As he arrived, he could already see the urgency on the faces of the other soldiers. His commanding officer, Colonel Price, was speaking quickly to a group of engineers. "Captain," the colonel said, his voice grave, "a ship has crashed. It's a large vessel, and we believe it belongs to the alien queen of the Akash, one of the most powerful species in the galaxy." Ryan raised an eyebrow. He had heard of the Akash, a fierce and proud race, known for their strength and ruthless politics. They were not the kind of species you'd want to mess with. "Where's the ship now?" Ryan asked. "About 10 miles north, deep in the jungle," Price replied. "We've lost contact with the survivors, and we have reason to believe the Queen's child is missing. Your mission is to locate the child and bring them back safely." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. The Queen's child? The Akash were notoriously protective of their heirs, and the idea of rescuing one was no small task. It was dangerous. It was risky. But Ryan didn't flinch. He had been trained for situations like this. "I'll go," Ryan said, his voice steady. "Give me a few minutes to gear up." Colonel Price nodded, his face set in a hard expression. "Be careful, Clark. This is not a regular rescue mission. We don't know what else is out there. You'll be on your own for the most part. We'll have a team standing by if you need backup." Ryan nodded again and turned to gather his equipment. He knew what he had to do. He grabbed his blaster rifle, a few grenades, and survival gear. As he fastened his boots tightly, his mind raced. A queen's child was a big deal, even to an alien species like the Akash. Their society was built on power, and an heir was sacred. If the child was in danger, it could mean a political nightmare for the galaxy. The mission felt heavier than usual. It wasn't just about survival, it was about navigating the unknown and protecting something the galaxy held precious. He had no idea what he would face in the jungle, but he was prepared to fight whatever came his way. Ryan took a deep breath, and with his rifle slung across his back, he began the trek into the alien jungle. The jungle was far from welcoming. The thick, vine-covered trees blocked out much of the light, and the constant chirping of insects echoed around him. The ground was soft and treacherous, and every step had to be calculated. Ryan had faced tough terrain before, but this planet was different. It had a strange, almost unnatural quality to it, as if the land itself was alive and watching him. As he moved deeper into the jungle, Ryan's senses were heightened. He had been trained to stay alert in hostile environments. But there was something unique about this place. The plants here seemed to pulse as though they were breathing. There were vines that looked like they could reach out and grab you at any moment. Strange creatures rustled in the underbrush, and Ryan kept his hand on his rifle, ready for anything. He kept moving, following the faint signal from the crash site. The air was thick with humidity, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead of him. His mission was clear: find the child, get them to safety, and return to base. But deep down, Ryan knew this wasn't going to be easy. Hours passed as he trekked through the jungle, the sound of the distant crash still echoing in his mind. He was close now. He could feel it. Suddenly, a movement caught his eye. From the corner of his vision, he saw something dart behind a cluster of trees. He froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. The jungle was alive with the sound of wildlife, but this was different. Something was wrong. Ryan took a cautious step forward, his breath steady, and his ears tuned to every sound. Then he saw it, a glimpse of something small and shadowed darting between the trees. A child? His heart pounded in his chest. "Is that you?" he whispered to himself, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the silence. "Help me." Ryan's eyes widened. The voice was faint, but it was unmistakable. It came from the shadows. He took a step closer. "Who's there?" From behind the trees, a figure slowly stepped forward. It was a child, but not like any child he had ever seen. The skin was pale, almost translucent, and the eyes glowed faintly, the color shifting between blue and purple. Ryan's mind raced. The child was of Akash blood. This was the Queen's heir. Ryan didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, extending his hand. "I'm here to help you." The child's eyes locked onto his. There was a strange calmness to their gaze, but also an underlying intensity that made Ryan's skin prickle. "I know you're here to help," the child said softly, as if they could sense his every thought. "But you don't understand what you've walked into." Ryan's heart pounded in his chest as the child's eyes met his. The air around them felt heavier now, as if the jungle itself was holding its breath. The child's features were delicate, but there was an intensity in their gaze that unsettled him. Their pale skin glowed softly in the dim light of the jungle, and their eyes shifted between shades of blue and purple, almost like an alien starry sky. Ryan instinctively took a step back, his hand still outstretched. "I'm here to help you," he repeated, trying to keep his voice steady. "You're the Queen's child, aren't you?" The child didn't answer right away. Instead, they looked up at the trees, their small body tense as if they were listening for something. Ryan's fingers tightened on his rifle. Something wasn't right. "I know you're here to help," the child finally said, their voice soft but clear. "But you don't understand what's going on. There's danger everywhere. It's not just the hunters, it's the land itself." Ryan frowned, confusion flashing through his mind. "Hunters? What do you mean?" he asked, trying to make sense of it all. The child's glowing eyes seemed to pierce through him. "The hunters who want me," they said, "they're not just people. They're something else. The jungle changes them. It makes them hunt what they don't understand." Ryan swallowed hard. He had heard stories about the Akash and their powerful enemies, but this was something new. He hadn't expected to face something like this on his mission. "I'll protect you," Ryan said, his voice firm. "I don't care what's out there. I won't let anyone hurt you." The child's eyes softened for a moment, but there was a sadness in them. "You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. The jungle is alive, and it doesn't take kindly to those who enter with bad intentions. I'm not just a child, and you're not just a soldier. We're both in this together now, and you'll need more than a weapon to survive." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't going to be a simple rescue. The child's words echoed in his mind, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were right. The jungle, the land itself, there was something unnatural about it, something Ryan couldn't understand. He had to be more than just a soldier now. He had to survive, not just for himself, but for the child. "All right," Ryan said, lowering his hand. "We'll stick together, but you've got to trust me. We'll make it out of here." The child nodded slowly, their gaze never leaving his. "I'll help you," they whispered, "but you must listen to me. The jungle has eyes, and the hunters are always near. They're not just looking for me, they're looking for you too." A sudden rustle in the underbrush interrupted their conversation, and Ryan's instincts kicked in. He immediately raised his rifle, scanning the shadows for movement. The jungle was eerily quiet now, the distant hum of alien wildlife the only sound. Then, without warning, a figure leapt from the shadows, moving with a speed and grace that Ryan couldn't follow, a blur of dark clothes and sharpened edges. Before Ryan could react, the figure landed in front of him, blocking his path. It was a human, barely older than a teenager, dressed in dark tactical gear. The newcomer's eyes were wild, their expression one of desperation. "Get back!" the teen shouted, raising a knife in one hand. "This is a trap!" Ryan barely had time to react before the teen lunged forward. Ryan dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike. The jungle, once still, was now filled with tension. The teen was quick, but Ryan was a trained soldier. He grabbed the teen's wrist, twisting it in a sharp motion until the knife clattered. "To the ground." "Listen," Ryan said, his voice steady but urgent. "I'm not here to fight you. I'm trying to protect the child." The teen's eyes flickered, momentarily losing their focus. For a brief moment, Ryan saw something in the teen's eyes, something deeper, more dangerous. The teen jerked, their arm away, backing up. "You don't understand," the teen hissed. "The jungle doesn't let people leave. If you're not careful, you'll end up like the others. The hunters will take you. You'll never be the same." Ryan looked to the child who was now standing behind him. Their eyes glowed faintly, as if reacting to the situation. The child didn't speak, but Ryan could see that they weren't afraid. They seemed oddly calm, as though they had seen this before. The teen took a step back, their eyes darting nervously around them. "They're coming," the teen said, voice trembling. "The hunters! They're close." Ryan's grip on his rifle tightened. "Who are the hunters?" he demanded, his patience wearing thin. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. "They're not human," the teen whispered, stepping closer. "Not anymore. They were once like us. Soldiers, explorers. They came here looking for power. But the jungle, it changed them. It twisted them into something else. Something hungry." Ryan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The child's warning echoed in his mind. The jungle was alive, and it was waiting. Suddenly, the air around them shifted. Ryan's senses went on high alert. He could feel it. Something was moving in the jungle, something big. The distant sound of footsteps echoed, growing louder, closer. The teen's eyes widened with fear. "It's too late," they whispered. "They're here." Ryan turned quickly, scanning the jungle around him. From the shadows, figures began to emerge, hulking shapes, distorted and twisted by the jungle's influence. They were human, but not. Their faces were pale, their eyes hollow, and their movements were jerky and unnatural. They had been changed by the jungle, twisted into something far worse than mere hunters. "Get ready," Ryan said to the child, his voice low. "This is going to get ugly." The child nodded once, their eyes glowing brighter now. "I warned you," they said softly. "The jungle doesn't let go." Ryan steadied his rifle, preparing for the fight of his life. The hunters were closing in. The jungle had already taken so much, and now it was after them. Ryan's heart raced as the first of the hunters emerged from the thick jungle brush. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and decay, and the shadows cast by the twisted trees seemed to move of their own accord. The jungle had a life of its own, And it wasn't done with them yet. The figures stalking toward them weren't human. Not fully. They were once soldiers, explorers, just like Ryan. But now, their eyes were empty, their movements jerky, almost mechanical. They had been transformed by the jungle into something monstrous, their faces pale, skin stretched tight over bones. The jungle had taken them, and now they were the hunters. Ryan tightened his grip on his rifle. The child was standing beside him, their eyes glowing softly, watching the hunters with a strange calm. Ryan had no idea what powers the child had, but he knew they were dangerous. He wasn't sure whether to be terrified or amazed. The teen who had attacked him earlier stood a few steps away, their body trembling with fear. They were no help now, lost in the terror of what was happening around them. Ryan knew they needed to act fast. If they didn't, the hunters would take them all. "Get behind me," Ryan ordered the child, his voice calm but firm. He had to protect them. He had no idea what kind of powers the child had, but he knew they couldn't face the hunters alone. The child stepped closer to him, their eyes never leaving the hunters as they slowly circled around them. Ryan's fingers twitched on the rifle, his mind calculating the situation. He couldn't shoot unless he had to. He had to save every bullet. The jungle was massive, and if the hunters got too close, there was no telling what might happen. The first hunter lunged, his movements unnaturally fast. Ryan fired, the sound of the shot cutting through the thick air. The bullet hit the hunter's shoulder, but he barely flinched. Instead, the creature grinned, its lips peeling back to reveal rows of sharp teeth. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest. These weren't ordinary enemies. The jungle had turned them into something far worse. But there was no time to second-guess himself. He needed to act. He fired again, aiming for the creature's head this time. The shot struck true, and the hunter fell to the ground with a sickening thud. But Ryan didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief. The other hunters were closing in. "Move!" Ryan shouted, grabbing the child's arm. "Run!" The child didn't hesitate. They darted forward, moving faster than Ryan could keep up with. The jungle around them seemed to bend and twist as if trying to slow them down. The air thickened, the ground beneath their feet becoming softer, almost as if the earth was trying to swallow them whole. Ryan pushed forward, struggling to keep up with the child's speed. He could hear the hunters behind them, their guttural growls echoing through the trees. He glanced over his shoulder just in time to see one of the hunters leap toward them, claws extended, ready to strike. "Get down!" Ryan shouted. The child ducked low, and Ryan swung his rifle, aiming at the hunter. He squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, but the hunter dodged, its movements fluid and fast, almost like it could anticipate his every move. Ryan didn't have time to think. He dropped the rifle and pulled out a grenade from his belt, priming it quickly. Without a second thought, he hurled it toward the approaching hunter. The grenade exploded in a burst of light and sound, sending the hunter flying backward with a howl. The blast gave them a moment of respite, but Ryan knew it wouldn't last. The jungle was alive with the sounds of more hunters, and they were closing in. "Keep moving," Ryan ordered, pushing the child forward. The teen was still behind, them stumbling and terrified. Ryan knew they couldn't keep up, but he didn't have time to care. He had a job to do, and he was going to do it. The child's glowing eyes never left the path ahead. They were moving with purpose now, like they knew exactly where they were, going. Ryan could barely keep up with them, but he trusted that the child was leading them to safety. The trees around them seemed to part as they moved, almost guiding them toward their destination. The jungle had a strange, unnatural quality, like it was alive and aware of their every step. Ryan had never felt anything like it. It wasn't just the hunters they had to worry about. It was the jungle itself. Suddenly, the child stopped. Ryan almost ran into them, but the child raised a hand, signaling for him to stop. They were standing in front of a massive, twisted tree, its bark black and smooth like obsidian. The tree's branches stretched high into the sky, its roots digging deep into the earth. "This is where we need to be," the child said. Their voice soft but filled with certainty. Ryan scanned the area, his instincts telling him that something wasn't right. They had to be careful. The hunters weren't far behind, and they didn't have much time. "What's here?" Ryan asked, trying to make sense of the situation. The child turned to him, their glowing eyes filled with a strange sadness. "This is where the jungle's power comes from. This is where everything changes." Ryan didn't understand, but he didn't have time to ask more questions. He could hear the rustling of leaves, the sound of footsteps moving closer. The hunters were almost there. The child closed their eyes, their hands raised to the sky. The air around them began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that filled the jungle. Ryan felt it in his bones, a deep, pulsing energy that seemed to emanate from the child. The jungle itself seemed to respond, the trees swaying and the ground trembling beneath their feet. "Stay close," the child whispered. Ryan instinctively moved closer, his heart racing. The hunters were almost upon them. There was no escape. But as he looked at the child, he realized something. They weren't afraid. The child had power that Ryan couldn't fully understand. And that power was about to be unleashed. With a sudden burst of energy, the child's hands shot forward, and the jungle around them seemed to come alive. The trees groaned, their branches twisting and turning as if they were reaching out to protect the child. The ground shifted beneath Ryan's feet, and for a moment, he felt as if the earth itself was moving, responding to the child's call. Then, in the distance, Ryan heard the hunters' growls. But they weren't coming closer. Instead, they stopped, their movements slowing, as if the jungle had decided they were no longer welcome. The child's eyes opened, and they looked at Ryan with a calm, knowing expression. "It's not over yet," they said softly. "But we've won for now." Ryan stood there, his breath coming in short gasps. He had no idea what had just happened, but one thing was certain. The child was more than just a royal heir. They were something far more powerful. And the jungle? It had just shown them both that it was far from done. The jungle was eerily quiet now, but Ryan felt no sense of peace. The child's power still lingered in the air, like a buzzing hum in the back of his mind. He couldn't fully understand it, but there was something both terrifying and beautiful about what had just happened. The hunters had been held back, but only for now. They would be back, and next time Ryan wasn't sure if the child's powers would be enough to stop them. The child stood in front of the ancient tree, their eyes glowing faintly as they stared into the distance. Ryan knew they were still connected, to the jungle still drawing from its power, but the longer they stayed in this place, the more dangerous it became. The jungle itself was alive, and it wasn't always a friendly neighbor. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, his voice quieter than usual. He wasn't sure how to address the child. After everything that had happened, he didn't want to make the wrong move. They were no longer just a child. They were something much more powerful, and Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and fear mixed together. The child nodded slowly, their eyes never leaving the twisted branches of the tree. "I'm fine," they said, their voice calm but distant. "But this place, it's not just a jungle. It's alive. It's always watching." Ryan glanced around, trying to see what the child was seeing. The trees swayed gently, but there was something unsettling about the way they moved. It was as if they were breathing, alive with energy. The leaves rustled in the wind, but there was no breeze. The jungle was watching, waiting. "What do you mean?" Ryan asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "What does that mean? Alive?" The child turned toward him, their glowing eyes now focusing on his face. "The jungle has a mind of its own. It changes those who enter it. It tests them. If you're not careful, you become part of it. Just like the hunters." Ryan shuddered at the thought. He had seen the hunters' twisted forms, their eyes hollow and empty. He didn't want to end up like them, trapped in the jungle's grasp. "Are we safe here?" he asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. "What if the hunters come back?" Child smiled, though it wasn't a happy smile. It was more like a knowing smile, as if they had seen this before. "We're safe for now," they said softly. "But the jungle doesn't give up easily. We'll have to move again soon." Ryan nodded. But deep down he knew that wasn't the full answer. The jungle had already shown him its power, and now he was starting to understand what the child meant. There was no true safety here, not unless they found a way to leave this place. As if sensing his thoughts, the child stepped closer to him. "I've been trying to show you something," they said, their voice almost a whisper. "Something that can help." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" The child extended their hand, their fingers trembling slightly. "I can share part of my power with you. It's dangerous, but it will help you survive here." Ryan stared at the child's outstretched hand, hesitant. He didn't understand everything that had happened, and now the child was offering to give him something. Something powerful, but something he wasn't sure he could handle. "You don't have to do this," Ryan said, stepping back. "I'm not sure I'm ready for whatever this is." The child's eyes softened, a hint of sadness crossing their face. "You don't have a choice," they said quietly. "The jungle won't let you leave unless you understand it, unless you can hear it. I can make that happen, but you'll need to trust me." Ryan looked at the child, torn. He had no idea what this would mean for him. He was just a soldier, a man trained to fight, not to tap into powers he couldn't understand. But the jungle was unlike anything he had ever faced. It was a living, breathing entity that could change everything. If this was his chance to survive, he had no choice. After a moment of hesitation, Ryan took a deep breath and extended his hand. "I trust you," he said, his voice firm. The child's eyes glowed brighter, and as their hand touched his, a surge of energy shot through him. It wasn't like anything Ryan had ever felt before. It was as if the entire jungle had opened up inside him, its rhythms and whispers filling his mind. The trees, the wind, the earth. It was all there, pulsing with life, with power. He staggered back, his mind reeling. He felt like he could hear the jungle's heartbeat, feel the ground beneath him shifting. His senses were heightened, sharper than ever before. He could hear the distant movement of creatures, feel the air shift before it happened. The jungle was alive, and he could feel it in his bones. The child stepped back, watching him closely. "It's not permanent," they said. "You'll feel it for a while, but eventually the connection will fade. But for now, you'll understand the jungle. You'll be able to hear it when it's trying to tell you something." Ryan took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. The world around him had changed. The jungle wasn't just a place anymore. It was something more, and now he was connected to it. "I can feel it," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "I can feel everything." The child nodded. "Good. Now you'll be able to survive, but remember, the jungle doesn't forget. It doesn't forgive." Ryan didn't need to be told twice. He could sense the truth in the child's words. The jungle wasn't just a place to be explored. It was a force to be reckoned with, one that had a mind of its own. And now Ryan was a part of it. "We need to keep moving," the child said, turning toward the path ahead. "The hunters will be back, and they won't stop until they have what they want." Ryan nodded, his mind still spinning from the experience. But there was no time to waste. They had to leave this place before the jungle decided they weren't allowed to. Together, they began walking again, the child leading the way, with Ryan following close behind. The jungle was alive with sound and energy, and for the first time, Ryan understood that he wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for his place in a world where nothing was certain, where everything had the potential to change in an instant. The jungle had chosen him, and now he had to live with its decision. Ryan's mind was still reeling from the connection he had felt with the jungle, the strange, overwhelming power that now surged through him. His senses were sharper, and everything around him seemed alive with energy. But as the jungle hummed, in his mind there was no time to rest. The child led him forward, their small figure moving with purpose, their glowing eyes scanning the path ahead. They had to move quickly. The hunters were still out there, and Ryan knew they wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. He could feel the faint pulse of their presence in the distance, like an unsettling vibration in the air. The child's power had given them a brief reprieve, but it wouldn't last forever. The jungle might have calmed for now, but the hunters were persistent. They would be back. Ryan followed the child through the dense trees, his mind racing. The weight of the gift he had been given settled on his shoulders. He could feel the pulse of the jungle around him, a constant reminder of the power he now shared with the child. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this, but there was no turning back. He had to survive, not just for himself, but for the child as well. "Where are we going?" Ryan asked, his voice breaking the silence. He needed to understand what came next. The child had led him through the jungle, but he didn't know what awaited them at the end. The child didn't answer right away. They continued walking, their steps swift and sure, as if they knew the path intimately. Finally they spoke, their voice soft, almost lost in the wind. "We're going to the Queen," the child said. "She will know what to do. She'll help us." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. The Queen. He had heard of her, of course he had, the Queen of the Akash. The powerful, revered leader of a species known for its strength and ruthlessness. The thought of meeting her made his stomach twist. He had no idea what she would think of him, what she would do when she learned that he had saved her child. "What will she do?" Ryan asked, his voice tight. "What will happen when we get there?" The child's glowing eyes met his, their expression unreadable. "She'll decide," they said simply. "But she will be grateful. She is always grateful to those who protect what is hers." Ryan wasn't sure what to make of that. Gratitude from the Queen of the Akash? He didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. But one thing was clear. He had no choice but to follow the child. He had to see this through, no matter what came next. As they continued through the jungle, the atmosphere grew heavier, the trees growing denser and the air more oppressive. It was as if the jungle itself was becoming more difficult to navigate, the path more tangled and twisted. The child led the way, their steps never faltering, but Ryan could feel the weight of the jungle pressing in on him. It was as though they were being watched, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the trees. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a massive structure, unlike anything Ryan had ever seen before. It looked like a palace, but made entirely of living plants, vines, and stone. It seemed to pulse with energy, as though it were alive. The very air around it hummed with power. "This is it," the child said, their voice steady. "The Queen is inside." Ryan's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea what awaited him behind those walls. The jungle had already shown him its power, and now he was about to meet the Queen of the Akash. His mind raced, but he knew there was no turning back. He had come this far. As they approached the entrance, the child stopped. "Stay close," they said, their voice low. "The Queen is powerful. She may not trust you at first, but don't be afraid. She will see your worth." Ryan nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon, but he quickly reminded himself that he wasn't here to fight. He was here to protect the child, to ensure their safety. He had to trust the child's judgment. The entrance to the palace was guarded by two towering statues, their features sharp and regal. As they passed the statues, the doors swung open on their own, revealing a grand hall bathed in a soft, otherworldly light. The air inside was thick with the scent of flowers and incense. At the far end of the hall stood a figure, tall and imposing, dressed in a flowing cloak made of what seemed to be woven vines. Her skin shimmered with an iridescent sheen, and her eyes, brilliant and cold, locked onto Ryan the moment he entered. The Queen. She was even more magnificent than Ryan had imagined, her presence filling the room with an undeniable power. She stood there, silent and unmoving, her gaze never leaving him. Ryan could feel the weight of her stare, and for a moment he wondered if he should bow or speak, but the child stepped forward, breaking the silence. "Mother," the child said, softly, their voice filled with reverence. "I've brought him." The Queen's eyes flickered for a moment, a hint of surprise crossing her face. She took a step forward, her movements graceful and fluid. "So, this is the human who saved my child," she said, her voice smooth, but laced with an authority that sent a chill down Ryan's spine. Ryan stood tall, trying to project confidence, but inside, he was shaking. He had no idea how to respond, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't show weakness. Not here. Not in front of the Queen. "I did what I had to do," Ryan said, his voice steady. "I couldn't let anything happen to your child." The Queen regarded him for a long moment, her eyes narrowing as if weighing him. Finally, she nodded. "You've done something few would dare," she said slowly. "But that doesn't mean I trust you. The Akash do not give their trust lightly." Ryan swallowed, his heart racing. He had expected this. He had expected suspicion, distrust. But what came next was something he hadn't anticipated. The Queen stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "However," she continued, "you've proven yourself to be capable. You've shown courage, even in the face of danger. And for that, I will show you gratitude." Gratitude? Ryan couldn't believe it. He had expected anger, hostility, not this. "I'll spare your life," the Queen said, her voice cold and commanding. "But understand this. You are not out of danger yet. The jungle is still hunting you. And if you are to survive, you must prove yourself worthy of what you have done." Ryan nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. But deep down, he knew the Queen's gratitude came at a cost. Nothing in this world came without a price. Ryan stood in the Queen's presence, his heart pounding in his chest. The air around him felt heavy, charged with the weight of her gaze. He had never been in the presence of someone so powerful, and though she had shown him a surprising amount of gratitude, there was an edge to her words that he couldn't ignore. The Queen of the Akash had spared his life, but her words were clear. Nothing came without a price. "You are still not safe," the Queen said, her voice calm but filled with an undeniable authority. "The jungle has marked you. It has chosen you, whether you wanted it or not. You are no longer just a soldier from Earth. You are something more now, and that power comes with a responsibility you may not fully understand." Ryan listened carefully, trying to make sense of everything. The jungle, the child, the Queen, it was all connected in ways he hadn't imagined. He had been thrust into a world far beyond his comprehension, a world where the rules weren't the same as those he had learned on Earth. "I did what I had to do," Ryan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I saved your child. I didn't ask for any of this." The Queen's gaze softened, but only slightly. "No one asks for power," she replied, "but it is given, whether we want it or not. You saved my child, and for that I will show you my gratitude, but you must understand there are consequences. The jungle does not give freely. It takes something in return." Ryan's mind raced. He had been part of the jungle, had felt its power surge through him. But what was it taking from him? What would he lose in the process? I don't understand, Ryan said, his voice laced with confusion. What do you mean? What is it asking for? The Queen studied him for a long moment, as though deciding how much to reveal. The jungle is not just a place. It is a living entity. It has existed for centuries, long before the Akash ever came to this world. The power it grants is not without cost. It changes those who receive it, for better or for worse. You will find that you are not the same as you were before. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. The jungle had already changed him, and the thought of losing more of himself was terrifying. He had felt the power coursing through his veins, the way the jungle's energy had merged with his own. He had become something different, something more than human. But what would that mean for him in the end? You are now tied to the jungle, the Queen continued. Its power flows through you, but it demands something in return. The longer you stay, the more it will take. It will change you in ways you cannot predict. The more you use its power, the more you become a part of it. Ryan's heart raced. He hadn't wanted this. He hadn't asked for this connection to the jungle, this strange bond with the child. But now that it was here, he couldn't escape it. The jungle had chosen him, and the Queen was right. Nothing in this world came without a price. I don't want to lose myself, Ryan said, his voice quiet, but filled with a sense of desperation. I don't want to become like the hunters. The Queen's eyes softened for a moment. You are stronger than they were. You have the ability to control the power the jungle has given you. But be warned. The jungle is relentless. It will test you, push you to your limits. If you are not careful, it will consume you. Ryan nodded, trying to grasp what she was telling him. He had felt the jungle's pull already, the way it seemed to whisper to him, urging him to trust it, to embrace its power. But the thought of losing himself, of becoming something twisted and unrecognizable, terrified him. I'll do what I can, Ryan said, determination settling in his chest. I won't let it take me. The Queen regarded him for a moment longer, her expression unreadable. Very well. You have proven your worth, and I will help you. But the road ahead is not an easy one. You must choose your path carefully, Ryan Clark. The jungle will not wait for you to make up your mind. Just as Ryan was about to speak, the child stepped forward, their small form casting a shadow in the dim light of the palace. The child's eyes glowed brightly, the intensity of their gaze unwavering. Mother, the child said, their voice soft but firm. He needs more than words. He needs a way to protect himself from the jungle's influence. He will need to learn how to control the power, or it will control him. The Queen nodded slowly. You are right, she said. The jungle will take what it wants, but it will also offer a way to balance the power. It is a delicate thing. Too much, and it will break you. Too little, and the jungle will take what it wants by force. Ryan turned to the child, his mind still spinning from the Queen's words. How do I control it? He asked. How do I keep the jungle from taking everything? The child stepped closer to him, their eyes glowing even brighter now. You must learn to listen to it, the child said softly. The jungle speaks to those who are willing to hear. You must learn to understand its rhythms, its patterns. If you can master that, you will be able to control the power it gives you. But it will take time. It will take trust. Ryan's mind raced with the implications of what the child was saying. He had already felt the jungle's presence in his mind, the way it connected with him, almost as if it was a part of him. Could he truly control it? Could he learn to balance the power without losing himself? You are not alone, the Queen said, her voice steady and commanding. You will have the child's guidance and you will have mine. But remember this, if you fail, the jungle will claim you. There will be no turning back. Ryan nodded, his resolve hardening. He didn't have a choice. He had to survive. He had to protect the child. He had to control the jungle's power, or it would consume him. "I understand," he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside him. The queen stepped back, her gaze never leaving him. "Good. You will begin your training tomorrow. We will prepare you for what lies ahead, but for now, you are dismissed. Rest while you can." Ryan nodded, but as he turned to leave the queen's palace, he felt the weight of her words pressing on him. The jungle had chosen him, but it had also given him a challenge that would change everything. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for control over a power that could break him, or make him stronger than he ever thought possible.